Hello, it's Nikki and welcome to a brand new series. This is a 10-parter, so buckle up. I really hope you're going to get something from today. It's something that I've been thinking about and planning for a while, and really to give you a bit more of a behind the scenes, but also not just kind of delve into the nitty-gritty of what I've done, but really use these questions to springboard where you go next. I don't know if you've noticed, but it really feels like things are shifting at the moment. And even Matt said to me the other night, I feel like we're really busy. I feel like there's a lot going on. And he actually used the word frazzled, which I don't think he's used in 15 years of me knowing him. But it feels vaguely normal at times. At times it doesn't. At times it still feels very confusing and unknown and feeling like we're processing all of it. But I'm certainly starting to feel glimmers of what's next. What's next in this new normal? What's next? Where do I go from here? I'm having a lot of chats with clients at the moment about really where they go next, knowing what really makes their heart sing and what they want to, I guess, leave behind the pre-COVID times. Because however difficult and challenging and upsetting and frustrating, and of course there's a huge sliding scale on all of those emotions depending on who we are and our circumstances, I do think that many of us are now better informed, I guess, as to what really works for us. And that quiet, that pulling back has meant that we've had to reassess, which at all times is not the easiest, but we are where we are. Anyway, it's a decade. It's a decade since I officially started on this coaching experience. I was going to say journey, but I'm not going to. Now, before this, I was doing quite a lot of strategy work, but also I didn't necessarily know what it was. So I guess 20 years ago when I was at drama school, I was doing a lot of processing and frameworks and working on success levels, because you have to be able to do that as an actor. You have to be able to deliver what you say that you're going to deliver. It doesn't matter on a Tuesday night if you're not really feeling it. If that audience has paid good money to come and see you, or not so good money, they expect a performance. So it's always been something that I've really assessed. But what I thought would be interesting today and for the next 10 episodes is to really go into some different topics. And I'm going to share some lessons that I've learned, things that went really well within these topics, but also some of the things that I should have done earlier, I should have not done at all, things that really I had to learn the hard way. And often when I had to learn it the hard way, I had to learn it again and again. I was saying this to a friend of mine the other day about my 40s, and I was saying, for me, it's really about learning lessons in my 40s and getting to a point where I can almost tick it off and say, I've learned that lesson now, and I will not be repeating that behavior anymore. Really interesting. That's another one for another time. Anyway, today I want to talk about that process and how this may affect a new chapter. So you might be having all those feelings of like, I feel like something's bubbling. I want to do something. I want to change something. I want to create something. And that was really where I was. So if we can go back to April 2012, so it was kind of Olympic fever. There was stuff going on. I can't believe that was nearly 10 years ago, or that was 10 years ago. That just seems wild. But where has that time gone? Who knows? But I just turned 30. And in that kind of 18 months before, I wasn't in a great place. And there were lots of lovely things happening. Like I just moved in with Matt and we got a lovely place to live in an area that we wanted to live in. I'd never lived with a boy before. And again, that's a whole new experience. And up until that point, over the last few years before that, I'd lived in some quite hectic flat shares. And well, I'd always kind of shared with pals or strangers or strangers that became pals. And it felt really nice to have that own space and that own sense of a new chapter. I'd also just turned 30, so there was a sort of a date in the diary that felt like, okay, this feels new, this new decade, what's this going to bring? And of course, all of the questions and insecurities and conversations around that. But I'd also lost quite a few people in my life. I was in a lot of grief. And there were about 4 people that I had lost who were very dear to me, very close to me. And I was really struggling at that time to process them not being here anymore. And I was just in a very fragile place. And I started to notice it in lots of areas of my life. Like I'd go and exercise and then I'd end up like just feeling really distraught afterwards, or like going to yoga and crying at the end in a heap. Or, you know, I'd go out for drinks and I was that girl who was just always crying after a couple of drinks, like not even many, but I really felt like I was in a state of change, that things were going on. I also was in this state of, and maybe you relate to this, of feeling comfortable and also feeling discomfort at the same time. And I felt at that time, especially with the deaths that had surrounded our family and friends, that I had to keep lots of parts of my life very run-of-the-mill, very like step by step. Like I didn't feel that I had the capacity to move out of my comfort zone, for want of a better phrase. But also I knew that in that moment there was more. And I really had to sit with that patience of saying, there's more, but I'm just going to have to wait this out. I'm just going to have to get through this and just work through and sit with this pain, this hurt, this grief, and then find a way when I can start to rebuild myself. I also allowed myself, even in those times of grief, to think about a time in the future where things would feel better. And that's a really hard place to be, especially when you're in it. You can't imagine ever not feeling like this. You can't imagine the pain ever going away. You just, it's just too much for your brain to process. And so at this point of making this change, I was definitely looking for answers. And maybe this is where you are right now, where you're like, I've got that itchy feet. I'm feeling like I want to move. I'm feeling restless. I'm feeling like I'm exploring. I'm doing all those things. I'm twitching. I'm peeking. I'm asking more questions. Or maybe it's showing up in a negative way as well. And I know that so many of us don't want to admit this, but sometimes these darker parts of our personality will come up. Maybe you're gossiping about people, or maybe you're not necessarily being as pleased for somebody as you should. Maybe you're talking negatively about somebody or talking negatively about yourself. Maybe you're not being truthful about what it is that you want, and instead you're brushing it away or taking the mick out of it. And I have done all of these things. Like, let me just say that as well. But now what I notice in those patterns, when I'm doing that stuff, which I don't want to be doing, and sometimes it's just a split second where I catch myself and go, whoa, that wasn't very nice. Why did I do that? Oh, I didn't mean that. Oh, gosh. Oh, usually in those moments, they reveal there's something deeper going on. There's something else that is trying to emerge and work its way through to me so I can pay attention and listen to it. And so even though I was in that dark moment, or many moments, I decided one day, and it wasn't like it was probably like a random Tuesday or something like that, to ask myself, what if it all worked out? What if there was a light at the end of the tunnel? What if there was good around the corner? What if? What if I could be brave? And again, these are all a spectrum. And you may be thinking like, I can't get out of bed today, Nikki. What are you talking about? Like being brave? Like, no. If that is you, if you are in that place, do what you need to do. Make that cup of tea, watch that Netflix, stay put. You know what you need to do on those days. So let's get to the next part of this. So I did a weekend of an introduction to coaching, and I totally went because I booked it and then I felt I should go. But even on the day, it was a Saturday morning and it was quite an early start. It was like a 9:30 start, which at that time was very early because it was an opportunity, to be in bed and just having a lazy morning and just enjoying those pre-children moments. Or even if I don't know, I felt like I slept better then. I don't know if that's to do with children, but anyway, it felt early. And on the day when I was getting on the tube, I was like, I don't want to go to this. It's probably not going to be for me. What if this is going to be a waste of time, etc. And very quickly, I thought, there's something in this. There's something in this. Not only is it confirming all of the stuff that I've been doing for years and years and years, like this is a thing, it's expanding it. It's really helping me. Like this qualification would be excellent to do. There are so many different ways that this could spread. I'm actually sitting in my living room right now, and as I look through the window, there's an enormous tree, and it's really interesting just looking at it, the way that it bends and the different strands and branches and leaves, and is a bit broken off, and it's a really, really interesting tree. And that's how I felt on this coaching weekend of like, there's so many different ways that this could enhance my life. And then on the Sunday, I found myself going back. I found myself filling out the form and arranging to be interviewed. I found myself applying for the bursary, which I won, and I had to pay a significant amount still. It was still like thousands to do. But it was a whole process. And suddenly I was on this course after not knowing that I was going to train to be a coach. And so when I got all of the things and I was on the course, this has been my first takeaway when I think about that time. And this can be applied to any next chapter, next project, next thing that you're doing. And the word that I've written down is immerse yourself. Immerse yourself with no judgment. That is easier said than done. I'm going to say it right now. Because when we do things, we want to be, like when we do new things, we want to be there. We want to be the best. We don't want to be the worst in the class. We want to know all of the stuff and we want to know it immediately. But you won't know the things immediately unless you fully immerse yourself in it. And when you immerse yourself, when you're in that moment, you quieten down the voice of judgment. When you're having a lovely time, when you're feeling playful, when you're feeling great, the judgment can't shout louder. It kind of silences itself, or at least moves to another room. And I knew this from drama school. My drama school training was not a university experience. When people were like, yeah, I've got a 2-hour lecture on Thursday, and then I'm kind of not in for the next couple of weeks. I was like, what? We were in 9 till 7, Monday to Friday. I worked all weekend. I had stuff to do in the evenings. It was full on. But I know that when I didn't, and this took me a while to lose this situation, because where I grew up, you never wanted to be the odd one out. You never wanted to be the one going for it, because people would just literally take the mick out of you, steal your money, threaten to kill you after school. Like, I'm saying these with a smile on my face, but because I can't believe it now. But that is what happened then. And it took me a long time to lose that inhibition of just get stuck in, just enjoy this process, get your head under the water, unfold your arms and be in this moment. I also realized that when I was training and when I was exploring this industry, this world, the self-development world, once you tap into something, once you sign up for a few newsletters, I'm sure you've done it yourself, or you go down a YouTube channel or a podcast or whatever it might be, you suddenly find a whole new world, and you're like, oh, I've got to watch this webinar, and I want to do this series, and oh, this person did a 4-part video. Oh, I'm going to do that. And that was great. But very quickly, I got quite overwhelmed. And so I gave myself permission, and this is going to be really key for you, whatever your next chapter might look like, is to take what you need and leave the rest. Take what you need and leave the rest. Because those who succeed are often not the people who have read every single thing and theorized everything. You have to do the practical action. You have to be able to deliver it. And I know there might be some people who might go on Mastermind and be able to answer questions on the complete works of Shakespeare. But if I wanted to be an actor, I don't necessarily want to be a Shakespearean actor, but from an actor's point of view, if I'm, say, playing, I was going to say Juliet, but I'm way too old to play the Juliet. I think I'd be the nurse now. Oh my goodness, I'd be the nurse in Romeo and Juliet. Fine. I can deal with that. It's fine. There is no point me thinking about Twelfth Night or Julius Caesar when I'm playing the nurse in Romeo and Juliet. I have to be the nurse. I have to be there in that present moment. And that's what's really important in your next chapter. What your brain will want to tell you that you need is to do more, to learn more, to train more, to absorb something else, because then you will be ready. But you have to get that stuff into your body. You have to be able to deliver it. For example, there may be people out there who have written down their top 10 talks that they would be able to deliver, but they haven't sent an email about the first talk that they were doing. But I tell you what, the first time that you do a speaking gig, or you go live on Instagram or something else, you learn how to work the technology. You know how to navigate an audience. You really listen. You see what lands. You see what absolutely doesn't. And so those are my points for you today. Number 1, fully immerse yourself. If you are getting that nudge, that go on, come on, there's something going on. If you find yourself gravitating towards something, please listen to that and give yourself that full permission to explore it with no judgment. Because those voices will start to become louder. You're not good enough. You need to know more. You're not the best in the class. Maybe you're too old. And I'm not saying that about you. I'm saying about typical voices that happen all of the time. Secondly, give yourself that permission to read, to be playful, to get involved, and not necessarily in a linear way. Really lead from what your heart is pulling you towards. And sometimes that might not be the next book on the list. Sometimes it might be like, oh, I'm going to go to a real life talk about that topic. That's what's going to keep you fresh in this new chapter. This is not about replicating anybody else's process. This is about finding your own. And number 3, take what you need and leave the rest. Even though your brain will want to tell you that you need to do more and more and more and more, and then you'll be ready. You're ready now. Do the thing today and then take the practical action. See what happens when you do it that way. You have to keep it practical. You have to keep it in your body. For example, you're never not going to know what it's like to drive a car just from a book. You have to do it. You have to move your feet. You have to know what it's like when your gear stick becomes a bit clunky. You have to know what it's going to be when you get yourself in a parking space and you're like, oh, bloody hell, that person's blocked me in. That's annoying. And there's everybody stopping and staring and beeping at me. Or you're on the motorway and you're on road, whatever it might be. You only know that when you start to practically do it. So if you take nothing from today, take some practical action, whatever that might be. I'm going to be back tomorrow. So I'd really love it if you were part of this series with me. And do share it. If you've resonated with something today, do let me know. As always, hello@nikkiraby.com. And if you want to book a session with me, I would love to hear from you. nikkiraby.com/sessions. I'm now, I haven't said this. I am now doing in-person sessions. I have various venues around London. It's all to do with the Soho House group. So if you want to, I'm saying this with a big smile on my face, if you want to do something in person with some lovely coffee and snacks or tea or lunch or however you want to make it work, please do get in touch. There are many venues that I can use around London. There's one here in North London. So if you're North London based, of course, you can come over this way. I can meet you in Central London. There's one in East London. I can be really flexible. So do get in touch. The details are on nikkiraby.com/sessions. All right. I will see you tomorrow. If you haven't downloaded a freebie or watched a freebie, go to nikkiraby.com/freebie. All right. I'll see you tomorrow.